Hey everyone, I'm Joe Garcia, DevOps Security Engineer for CyberArk. I spend most of my days creating best practices and strategy for automation in identity security. But today I want to take 15 minutes out just to speak to everyone about how Red Hat Ansible automation platform integrates with CyberArk in order to provide secure secrets to your automation that needs access. But first, I want to start with introducing you to CyberArk's identity platform, since a lot has changed in the past year. Been expanding a lot recently. Even though we're known for our industry-leading privileged access management solution, we've expanded into the world of identity. And from the access umbrella, you'll notice that we have workforce identity as well as customer identity. So now we can cover those SSO, MFA use cases, user provisioning, and things like that. But that's not going to be our focus today. Our focus today is on our DevSecOps umbrella, the Conjur Secrets Manager, as well as our credential providers. Specifically, the Conjur Secrets Manager is designed in a manner that it's a containerized secrets management system. So it's meant to be dynamic, automatically scalable, as well as highly available, so that your CI/CD pipelines and automation always have a service available that it can request secrets from. And we're able, on our side of the house, to always keep that audit data centralized and flowing. If you want to take a look at our open source solution of Conjur, feel free to go to conjur.org and check out what we have to offer for it. As far as today, though, I want to briefly touch on the SolarWinds attack. I know that this has been talked a lot about recently in the news, but I think it's very relevant to what we're going to be discussing today in securing automation secrets. First and foremost, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency it basically broke down the attack chain into 3 different stages. The first stage being the Orion software pipeline infection. Basically what that is where the automated CI/CD pipeline was infiltrated and a backdoor code exploit was added to the Orion software before it was released out as an update package to the customer base. In stage 2, they started using that backdoor code in order to target the most vulnerable organizations and identify them. And then in stage 3, they were able to laterally move throughout those networks once they gained access to them and eventually escalate privilege to the point of being able to infiltrate data from high-value assets. But I'm going to be focusing only on stage 1. They only gave me 15 minutes to talk here, and I love talking, so I'm going to try and limit it to this one stage. But it's the most relevant. It's where the automated CI/CD pipeline was, and it goes hand in hand with what we're going to be talking about today. So let's take a look at how we can use Red Hat Ansible automation platform along with CyberArk in order to secure the most common attack vectors that we typically see out there. First attack vector here is hard-coded SSH keys and passwords. We'll take a look at how we can deal with those. And then we're going to take a look at some default passwords that typically are not changed or maybe are short-lived, but now are lived long enough for them to actually be abused. And then finally, behind my face here in this recording is leaked secrets for service-to-service authentication. And if we just take a quick look here, these are just the easiest attack for the low-hanging fruit. The screenshot that I have here is an application called Shgit, which I used and turned on for literally 15 seconds. It scans GitHub, Bitbucket, all of the major source code management public domains out there. These happen to just all come from GitHub, and I was able to solidify all 3 use cases by just scanning 3 things. It looks real time at what's coming into GitHub and then looks for high entropy strings or regular expression matches. In this case, I found a TFVAR config file that held default passwords in it. I found a Jenkins config file that had a private key in it. And then I was able to discover a Google Cloud API key with at least access to a Firebase backend database. But who knows? It could be overprivileged and give me a little bit more access that I need in that Google Cloud environment. First with the SSH keys and passwords, this is the use case that every user of Ansible will run into immediately out of the box. And so we want to, rather than storing them statically within Ansible's platform, utilize CyberArk to get them just in time. And here's how we can do that. CyberArk secret lookups are available natively out of the box in Ansible Tower version 3.5.1 and above. So if you're on a version later than 3.5.1, you're good to go. You go in your credential types and you'll see that you have some CyberArk secret lookups in there. Our central credential provider is supported on top of Conjur, which is in the screenshot you see here. All you're doing is setting up some connection information in order for Ansible Tower to be able to authenticate to Conjur or to the credential provider. And then these secret lookups become what's called an input source on your actual credential. So I would create like an AWS access key credential. I would have the access key ID in the field for that, and then the secret key would actually be the input source for Conjur. So I'd click the magnifying glass, select Conjur, and then give it the variable name from Conjur, and it'll just in time grab it, bring it over. The job template will run. It'll see that, hey, I need to contact Conjur in order to get this secret so I know what to use, and the authentication authorization process will occur in the background. And then if everything works out and everything's authorized, the values will be injected as environment variables specific to the credential type that's used. So in our case, if it's AWS, it's going to be the AWS specific environment variables for the ID and the secret key. And it's as easy as that. Now, from a security perspective, I can rotate that access key as many times as I want. I don't have to worry about Ansible Tower breaking down the automation and not working because I don't have to go into the platform and change anything. I'm changing it in CyberArk's platform and we're good to go. Very cool. Environment variables mean no playbook changes. The same environment variables that are used for a normal credential stored within Ansible's platform is how it'll be presented coming from CyberArk. We just change the place where it lives. Pretty simple stuff. So this is what the input source would look like. You can just select the input source, give it some metadata, which would be like the secret variable name or the path of where to find it, and you're off to the races. It's really that easy. Let's take a minute to talk about immediate management of default credentials. What I mean default credentials is essentially SolarWinds 123. I mean, if we go back to the SolarWinds breach, we all know that password was the password that was set default when they configured everything and it just never got changed. Well, let's fix that here and now, right? Let's use an example of a LAMP stack in order to show how Ansible's automation platform with CyberArk can change that from happening. So typically what will happen is when we have an easy password that we can remember, like SolarWinds 123 or even CyberArk 1, and you guys think I'm joking, that's actually a demo environment password that basically all our customers and know about. But when they're so easy to remember, like SolarWinds 123, it's easy for developers and engineers to just hard code it into playbooks, which we don't want to do. I don't care how short-lived that is. You just saw Shgit watching in real time as these things are put into, public repositories. And I'm able then within a couple minutes time, go in there and start testing that out. We don't want that to happen. So rather than hard coding it, what we can do is instead randomize the creation, right? Like, what do you do if you have a LAMP stack that's being deployed and you need a MySQL user, a local user, an SA user, privileged user, and it needs a password set? Well, you can do what you see on line 71 here in this playbook. You can use a randomized password instead of having a default password. You don't need to know the password because if we take a look at the next slide, we're immediately onboarding it after we create the user into CyberArk. So at that point, we never know the password that we're using for our default password, right? It's randomized. It's not being logged Ansible's logs. It's not being known by us. It's randomized. And then we give it over to CyberArk as soon as we create that user, and CyberArk takes management over. So we could even configure CyberArk to change it a second time if we want to, or verify, or do all sorts of different things that CyberArk is great at. But if we immediately onboard that account to CyberArk, we have nothing to worry about. Like, what? Put this out on GitHub. Who cares now? We're randomizing passwords. Have fun trying to guess them, right? So this is a real easy process that anybody can do today. This is available in our, the onboarding is available in our CyberArk.paz collection that's available in the Automation Hub or on Ansible Galaxy. So you can get started with that today. And then in our final use case is one that I haven't really talked about in the past, but it's been coming up a lot more frequently with our customers who do own Ansible and CyberArk already and are in the middle of bringing the integration and that, making that marriage happen. It's basically like, how can I authenticate to another service, let's say CyberArk's REST API, from within a playbook and do it securely? Like, what does that look like? Well, let's take a look at my recommendation. This isn't so much as an integration between CyberArk and Red Hat. I just think that this is information that everyone should put to practice and should be employing within their organization, because as we start to secure things that are already included out of the box with Ansible's automation platform, we need to think about things that aren't included and how we can bring them into the whole fold of securing the authentication credentials as well. So custom credential types for services is this whole use case here. Not every service has a credential type already created for it. So luckily Ansible, has provided a way for you to be able to create custom ones. And they're very simple to create. You have your input configuration and then your injector configuration. The input config is the fields that you want them to be presented with when they select your credential type. So in my case, it would be username, password, base URL. I think those are the three. And then I even made all three required, because without one, I can't authenticate to the REST API. And then for the injector configuration, you're just going to list out the environment variables that you want to present to the playbook. So your developers, your engineers, whoever's building your playbooks will just reference environment variables at the end of the day, like they always do. So minimal code changes there, depending on, whether they just need to change the environment variable's name or not. But then you can take this credential type, this custom credential type, use an input source that we talked about 2 use cases ago for Conjur, for our central credential provider. And then you're delivering just-in-time secrets for service-to-service authentication, rather than doing what the most simplest thing is, and that's what? Hard coding it, right? Because we don't have injected environment variables. It's very easy for us just to hard code this in there, or have, service credentials that are siloed away from our centralized management that CyberArk provides, and we don't have visibility on it. So these are all, great use cases that we see commonly as initial attack vectors. Hopefully you all learned something. Want to learn more from CyberArk, I've got some awesome QR codes here. Unfortunately, one is covered up by my beautiful face here, but the Conjur.org automation security portal on the very left of this slide, if you scan that QR code, you can make your way over to the CyberArk Interactive Ansible tutorial. So maybe do that. It's an extra step, but sorry, I can't automate moving my webcam around here, or else I would. But then there's also a longer webinar where I go deeper into the technical details of what we just discussed on Bright Talk, a webinar I did with Red Hat for Red Hat on protecting the enterprise and securing automation processes. You can scan that QR code there to go directly to that video and start watching it. And then, the CyberArk Interactive Ansible tutorial is really cool because you get the chance to play with Conjur in an interactive environment as well as Ansible and see how our integrations all tie in, and you can learn about all that. So I want to thank everyone for spending the past 14 minutes or so with me. Looks like I'm going to nail 15 minutes on the dot, so hopefully there's some happy people over at... But, be sure to check out their YouTube, where hopefully this video turns up in the future. And if I talk too fast, you can turn me down a step or two, and then I'll talk real slow. But again, I just wanted to thank everyone for spending this time with me. And until next time, stay secure.